Okay, so that's what we're going to be working with today. We're still working with fractions. We're still going to be working with our mixed numbers that have a whole number part and a fraction part. I'm just going to use this white space for just a minute just to do a little kind of a review from the other day. If I gave you 7 times 1/5, anytime we have a whole number, we have to remember that we can turn that whole number into a fraction by simply putting it over 1. 7 over 1 is the same thing as just 7, because 1 will go into 7 times, which would make a whole, so there's our 7. And then we bring down the rest of our expression. And then now that we have 2 fractions, we know that when we're multiplying fractions, we just multiply straight across. Numerator times numerator, so 7 times 1 would give me a 7. 1 times 5 would give me a 5. And remember this, when the numerator, when it's bigger on top than it is on bottom, our numerator is bigger than our denominator, we turn it into a mixed number. So we would just go off to the side, and remember we read from top to bottom, 7 divided by 5. So I have 7 divided by 5. And I know 5 will go into 7 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. And then we subtract. So we're left with 2. I don't have anything else to drop down, and 5 won't go into 2, so I know that I have 1 whole one with a remainder of 2. So 7/5 is equal to 1 and 2/5. So that would be my final answer on that problem. Okay, so now let's move on to the next page in your workbook. It's asking how far did they run. Now, the problem reads, Maya ran 1/4 the length of her road, which is 9 miles long. How far did she run? We talked the other day, y'all laughed because I said it's kind of like English to Mathlish, but basically our problem is saying they want to know what 1/4 of 9 miles is. 1/4 of 9 miles. So that's what they're asking in English, and we talked the other day that over 95% of the time in math, the word of means multiply. So if we now take this English and turn it into Mathlish, we would have 1/4 of, which means multiply, 9 miles. Now, just like we did a minute ago, it doesn't matter if the whole number comes first or if the fraction comes first. We work the problem the same. We would have 1/4 times, and then to turn our 9 into a fraction so that we can multiply fractions, we always put the whole number over 1. So 9 is the same thing as 9 over 1, and then we multiply straight across. 1 times 9 is 9. 4 times 1 is 4. And this is hard to determine how much in miles if you just look at it as an improper fraction. So we would go over to the side, top to bottom, 9 divided by 4. So we have 9 divided by 4. We know 4 will go into 9 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8, and then we subtract. We don't have anything to bring down. 4 won't go into 1, so we have 2 with a remainder of 1. And to write that as a mixed number, our quotient on top always tells us how many whole ones we have. So we have 2 wholes and 1/4 remaining. So if my ran 1/4 the length of her road, which is 9 miles, she ran 2 1/4 miles, or 2 1/4 miles. I'll give you just a second to get that copied in your workbook. Sorry, guys. Give you just a second to get that copied over into your workbook to make sure that you can look back at it. Okay. Board doesn't like me today. Y'all know what? How it does me. There we go. All right. Now moving to the next one. Han ran 1/4 the length of his road. His road is 7 miles long. So how far did he run? And it says that we can represent our thinking with a diagram. So if he ran 7 miles, we could use 7 rectangles to represent the 7 miles. So we've got 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles, and 7 miles. And we know that working previously, we have divided things up into whatever our denominator is. That's how many times it's being split. Remember that the number on bottom is always how many it's being split up, or how many it's being shared. So we would have 1, 2, hang on, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. So each of these would be saying that it is being divided in fourths. So if you wanted to diagram it, this would be the way that you could diagram. So each one of the boxes would represent a mile, and then we know that it was being done in fourths. Now let's look at it as, they didn't ask us to represent it as an equation in this one, but let's go ahead and do that. Again, we're basically trying to figure out what 1/4 of 7 miles is. And we've talked about that of typically means multiply in math. Let me erase this diagram really quickly so I can move this up. So basically we wanted to know what 1/4 of 9 miles is. So if we take that English to Mathlish, we still know that we have 1/4. The word of in math almost always means multiply. And we're talking about 9 miles. And I have wrote the wrong number 3 times, hadn't I? This person's road is 7 miles. We just did 9 miles. This person's road is 7 miles. Okay? So we know that we're going to need to multiply fractions, and we know that we can turn 7, any whole number, we can turn it into a fraction by placing it over 1. And then we multiply straight across. So we would have 1 times 7 is 7. 4 times 1 is 4. Anytime we have the improper fraction, bigger on top than on bottom, we need to go over to the side. We would read it from top to bottom. 7 divided by 4. So we have 7 divided by 4. 4 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. Then we subtract. 7 minus 4 is 3. We don't have anything else to bring down, so we have a remainder of 3. Remember, the number on top always gives us our whole number part, so we have 1 and 3, because our remainder was 3, and we were dealing in fourths. So if Han ran 1/4 the length of his 7-mile road, he ran 1 3/4 miles. And I'll give you guys a minute to get that copied down so that you can look back at it if you need to. Okay. Now, I want you to take your card set that you were supposed to have cut out this morning, and on page 106, it gives you a situation. On page 106, it says that Han, Lynn, Kieran, and Jada together ran a 3-mile relay race. They each ran the same distance. You're going to take your card sort, and it wants you to find the expressions and the diagrams, and it also has given you some fraction multiplication, both with a whole number and a fractional part. So I want you to look through your card set and think about which of your card sets would represent that situation. A 3-mile race being run or split into 4 different runners. And when we've been writing it as fractions to help you find your fraction one, because finding that fraction one really helps out in determining which of the others are also equivalent. So remember when we were talking about our fractions, the number on top we've talked about is what you have all together. Let me go and zoom out of that just a little bit. Okay, so we talked about that when we're putting these situations in fraction form, the number on top of our fraction is what we have all together. And in this situation, the thing that we're looking at as being all together is the miles in that relay race. And then what would be on the bottom of our fraction is always how many times was it being split or shared. So in this case, it was being split and shared by a number of runners. So look through your card sorts and see which one, if we're talking about all all the miles all together would be on top of our fraction, and how many times it was being split or shared by the number of runners. That should help you to get started. I will tell you that you are going to have 4 of your small cards, because when you got them cut up, you should have 4 that are smaller cards. And then you're going to have 2 diagrams that will match this situation. You're going to have 4 expression or fraction cards that match this situation, and you'll have 2 diagram cards that match this situation. And you can write on your cards. If you want to go ahead and do the math part. Anna, can you mute yourself, please? Okay, I muted you, baby. So on the ones that have expressions on there where it's multiplying a whole number times a fraction, just go ahead and take a pencil and work those out underneath there and see what final fraction you come up with. And see which ones would represent the miles altogether on top of the fraction and how many runners it was being split by on the bottom of the fraction. Okay, I'm going to start just giving you little hints. This is the card that I would have picked up first. And I put on there because I looked for the number of things that I was looking for all together. I knew I was looking for 3 miles all together. And I knew that that 3 miles was having to be split or shared between 4 runners. So let me show it on the YouTube channel also. If I had the 3/4, then that is what I would be looking at to get me started. It was 3 miles altogether being split or shared between 4 runners. So when I looked at this, when I started with this one and I read my fraction from top to bottom out loud to myself, I would have said 3 divided by 4. So then I started looking for my next card that would match this situation. And I know that 3 divided by 4 written up and down is the exact same thing as 3 divided by 4 when I have it written as an expression. 3 divided by 4. Okay? Sorry guys, just a second. Now is it right? I didn't have the mirror effect thing wasn't on. So we would have 3 divided by 4 written from left to right is the same as 3 divided by 4 written on the top of each other. So then I started to look at my ones that had an expression written out as the multiplication between a whole number and a fraction. So I looked at this one and I wrote it as 3. I took my 3 and I made it into a fraction by putting 3 over 1. And then I multiplied it times 1/4. And I had 3 times 1 is 3. And then I had 1 times 4 is 4. So I ended up again with 3/4, which equals the one that I started with. So then I took this expression and I had my 1/4, and again I turned my 3 into an improper fraction by putting it over 1. So then I had 1 times 3 is 3, 4 times 1 is 4, so again I ended up with 3/4. So those are the 4 cards that you should have had that matched. And then you should have had 2 diagrams. One of the diagrams was like this, and it showed 3 rectangles. Each rectangle represented 1 mile, and we knew that it was 3 miles. And each of the rectangles was divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 runners. So then we have to look at the shaded part. So we know that each little box would have been 1/4. And then if we look at how many are shaded, 3 are shaded on this one, and each one is 1/4. Just a moment, guys. I have a visitor in the room. I'm going to put you on mute for just a moment.
Kiriana can't get in. This is her mom's phone number. She's trying to get into your meeting. Did she try both ways? I have no idea. She just said, I've been trying to get her into the meeting. She can't get in. And I was like, she asked for me. And I was like, I'm not in a Zoom meeting. She was like, well, it's for her. It's for Miss Renata. I was like, why'd you ask for me? Is there anybody waiting to get in the room?
No, I always turn the waiting room off.
Oh, okay, so they
So
can just.
she's just doing something wrong, because I sent them a link, and then I also sent them the Zoom meeting passcodes and password. So
Okay, so I'll just call her back right quick then and just be like, must be something.
yeah, it has to be something with their internet. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry guys, I'm back. Okay. And so then our second diagram, because I told you 2 diagrams could match this, here would be our second one. Again, it's the 3 rectangles, each rectangle representing 1 mile. And each rectangle was divided into 4 runners. And then you look at how many are shaded. 3 of the little fourths are shaded. So those are the 2 diagrams that would have gone with your problem. Now, it didn't ask you to, but I'm going to go ahead. Let's look at the card set, the cards that you didn't have with anything. And let's talk about why these would not represent. If we first look at it as when they're all together, it tells us that all together, this one's implying that there were 4 miles altogether, but our problem said 3 miles. And then in this one, it puts the 3 on the bottom, and we know that the 3 is how many it's being split up into or shared by, and we knew that there were 4 runners. So this is actually totally the opposite of what they should have had. 4 over 3, 4 divided by 3 is not the same thing as 3 divided by 4. But when I looked at that, then I did match it with this one. It matches this one. It doesn't match our situation, but it matches this one because 4 over 3, 4 divided by 3, reading up and down is the same as 4 divided by 3, reading left to right. And then it would have matched this one because we set it up, our whole number as a fraction, multiplied straight across, and we got 4 over 3. Again, opposite from our situation. Then this one would have gone in that set because I turned my whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1, multiplied straight across, and got 4 over 3. So again, they had it back. This one is backwards. It did not match the situation. And then the diagram that didn't match the situation was this one. Because according to this diagram, we said that each rectangle represents a mile. So for this diagram, this is saying that there were 4 miles. And then it's also showing that it was only split between 3 runners. So again, this one is totally backwards from our situation. I just wanted to, even though I didn't ask you to, I just wanted to go over that and see why these would have been the leftovers. They were totally opposite from the situation that they gave us. So now you should have your lesson 7 cool down sheet that I gave you on Friday. So you will just need to, it's called another race. It's the cool down, another race. So you're going to take that and you're going to work that out. If you need to look back at any of this information, you can go to my YouTube channel. It is, for those of you that don't know, go to my YouTube channel at, just look for Tracy Menard 70. Give me about 10 minutes because it'll take about 10 minutes for me to upload this video onto my YouTube channel. But in about 10 minutes, you'll be able to find this on my YouTube channel. So if you need to look back at anything that we've done today, and on your science, you'll do your science in Buzz just like you always do. I'm not going to do a Zoom meeting for the science because it's all available in Buzz just like always. And I hope this has helped you this morning, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow.